Hello everyone, my name is the Storyteller, and today I will share with you some horror stories to help you fall asleep. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. But before that, write down in the comments from where you are listening this and what time it is. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss upcoming horror stories. The Painted Grin. Chapter 1. The Carnival That Shouldn't Have Been There. The carnival arrived overnight. No trucks, no workers, no sound. One sunset, the empty lot at the edge of town sat barren and forgotten, and by the next sunrise, striped tents and rusted rides sprawled across it like a sleeping beast. People whispered about it all morning. Kids swore they heard music before dawn, a faint calliope tune drifting through their bedroom windows, soft but wrong, like a lullaby played backward. Eli Parker, 17, didn't believe any of it. But when he biked past the lot on his way to school, he felt a cold drop in his stomach. The carnival looked ancient. Lights flickered even in daylight. The Ferris wheel creaked slowly, though no wind touched it. And on the side of the entrance arch, smeared in faded paint, grinned the face of a clown, its eyes too wide, its mouth too sharp. The Painted Grin Carnival. We never stop smiling. Eli shivered. The clown's painted pupils seemed to stare straight at him. A faint melody played from inside the tents. A warped, bending tune. Calliope music, like something underwater. He pushed down the chill creeping up his arms. It was just some weird traveling carnival. Right. He didn't see the tall figure standing behind the archway's curtain, watching him. Red hair, white face. A smile stretched too far, too stiff, like it had been carved into flesh. The clown whispered through cracked lips. Found you. Chapter 2. The Laugh in the Vent. Eli didn't think about the carnival again until that night. He was getting ready for bed when he heard it. A laugh. Faint, high-pitched, muffled like it came from behind the walls. He froze halfway through closing his window. There it was again. He-he-he-do-ow. At first he tried to rationalize. Houses creaked, pipes groaned. Wind could sound like anything if you imagined it. But this wasn't the house. It wasn't the pipes. It was a laugh, childlike but not childish, too playful, too delighted. Too close. He stepped toward his vent, heart pounding. The metal grill was cold. He pressed his ear against it. Hetty have found you. He stumbled back, nearly tripping over his desk chair. Dad, he whispered, knowing it wasn't him. Silence. Then, tab-a-tab-a-tab. Something scraped against the inside of the vents, as though long fingers were dragging across the metal. Eli slammed a towel over the vent and backed away. He didn't sleep that night. And the whole time, through the dark hours until dawn crept in, he heard faint tapping, like something crawling through the ducts. Waiting, searching, laughing. Chapter 3. The Missing Boy. By noon the next day, everyone knew. A kid from Eli's grade, Noah Fisher, hadn't shown up to school. By third period, teachers were whispering. By lunch, police cars were combing the streets. Noah was last seen leaving for school at 7:30 a.m. He never made it past the corner of his street. The atmosphere at school turned heavy, suffocating. Groups formed in tight circles. People whispered theories. Some cried. But one detail spread faster than anything else. Noah's little sister swore he stopped walking when he heard something. A clown laughing, she said between sobs. Everyone dismissed it as trauma-induced imagination. But Eli's blood went cold. That laugh. That same laugh. He tried to push it out of his mind, but by the time he got home, everything felt wrong. The house was too quiet, the hallway too dim, his room too cold. He approached the towel-covered vent. He peeled the towel away slowly. Silence. He exhaled shakily. Tap. He jumped back. The vent rattled violently. Then the laugh slid out like a blade. Head one down. Chapter 4: The Carnival at Night. Eli knew he should go to the police, but all he had was, what? A laugh-through event, a nightmare carnival, a missing classmate. Nobody would believe him. But as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, something tugged at him. An instinct, a pull, a voice whispering in the back of his skull. He needed answers. And answers were waiting at the carnival. The lot was empty this time. No crowds, no friends daring each other to go near. Just the tents looming like diseased ribs in the dark. The archway lights flickered with an almost living pulse. Calliope music drifted through the air, slow, dragging, raw. Eli stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Rotting cotton candy, old wood, something metallic underneath. Rides moved, though no one operated them. A carousel spun on its own, horses twitching as if trying to escape their poles. The Ferris wheel turned with a groaning wail. Eli walked toward the center tent, the biggest one, striped red and white. A sign hung from the entrance flap. Meet the star of the show, Grinzo the Clown. Eli's breath caught in his throat. He didn't want to lift the flap. Every cell in his body railed against it. But then he heard it. A voice inches behind his ear, though no one was there. Come inside, I've been waiting. Chapter 5: Grinzo. The inside of the tent was massive, much bigger than the outside suggested. Rows of empty wooden seats curved around a circular stage. Red lights flickered overhead. A spotlight snapped on. Eli flinched. Standing in the center of the ring was the clown. White cracked face paint like dried plaster. A red smile smeared from ear to ear, jagged and dripping. Eyes too large, pupils tiny and black like pinholes. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just grinned. Eli stepped back, but the flap behind him slammed shut. He was trapped. The clown tilted his head sharply, bones cracking like snapping pencils. Then he spoke, not with a human voice, with a voice that sounded like dozens of laughs stitched together. I'm Grinzo, the last clown you'll ever meet. The lights flickered. The clown took a single step. The ground shook. Another step. The air turned freezing. Eli stumbled backward onto the dirt floor. Grinzo crouched down in front of him, face inches away. His smile twitched like a living thing. He whispered. Noah screamed your name before he stopped screaming. Eli's vision blurred with terror. The clown lifted a gloved hand. Long, needle-like fingers extended from the tips, metallic and dripping. Your turn. The lights went black. Eli's scream tore through the tent. And something answered, laughing. Chapter 6: The Thing in the Dark. Eli woke up choking on dust. His lungs burned, his head spun. It was pitch black, so black he couldn't tell if his eyes were open. The dirt beneath him was cold and damp. For one horrifying moment, he thought he was dead. Then the laugh echoed again, distant but unmistakable. We're just getting started. He scrambled to his feet, hands trembling. His fingers brushed canvas walls. He was still in the big tent, but the lights were gone. The stage, the seats, the path out gone. Something brushed past his leg. He froze. A soft, wet dragging sound circled him, like something crawling through the dirt. His heart hammered so hard he could barely hear anything else. Then just ahead, a dim light flickered. A lantern. He stumbled toward it. When he lifted it, the flame sputtered to life, and the shapes around him snapped into clarity. The audience seats were filled with mannequins. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All dressed in carnival clothes, heads twisted unnaturally toward him, eyes cracked, limbs broken. And every mannequin had the same painted clown face. Eli staggered back. One mannequin's head jerked toward him. Then another. Then all of them. Their jaws clicked open in unison. And in perfect harmony they whispered, "Smile." Chapter 7, Run. The mannequins moved. Not fast, but fast enough. Eli bolted toward the far side of the tent. The lantern swung wildly in his grip, shadows stretching like claws. The clicking of plastic joints and snapping of wooden limbs followed behind him. He hit a curtain, shoved through it, and found himself in a narrow hallway made of stripped wooden boards. The lantern illuminated peeling paint, rusted nails, and streaks of dried red dragged along the walls. A maze. The carnival was a maze. Behind him, mannequins scraped their limbs across the corridor floor. He sprinted, turning blindly, left, right, straight, heart slamming against his ribs. His footsteps echoed into nothingness. Then he heard something ahead. Footsteps, but heavier, slower, purposeful. Grins up. Eli skidded into a side passage and pressed himself against the wall. He held his breath. The footsteps grew louder, louder, and then stopped right beside him. A long shadow fell across the boards. Ellie didn't dare look. He could smell the clown's breath, sweet like rotting sugar. "I'll find you, Eli." Everyone finds the carnival eventually. Eli closed his eyes, barely containing a sob. The shadow lingered, then faded. Slowly he crept away. He didn't know where he was going, but anything was better than here. Chapter 8, The Mirror Corridor. The hallway opened into a round chamber with a single entrance opposite him. As Eli stepped inside, lights flickered on overhead, cold white buzzing. Mirrors filled the room from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of Eli's reflections stared back, warped and stretched. Some tall and thin, some short and twisted, some wrong. He tried not to look directly, but the reflections seemed to move even when he didn't. Eli walked carefully, hand out, searching for the exit. A faint fog drifted along the floor. His reflection nearest him tilted its head. Eli didn't. He froze. Slowly, so slowly, the reflection smiled, a wide, growing grin that split past its cheeks. Not Eli's smile. Grinzo's smile. All around him, every reflection bloomed with the same monstrous grin. Their jaws unhinged. Their eyes bled streaks of black. And together, the army of mirror Eli's whispered, "Let us out." One reflection slammed its palms against the glass. Another pounded. Dozens hammered at once, cracks forming. Eli ran for the exit, just as a mirror shattered behind him, spraying shards across the floor. Hands reached out of the broken wall of glass, pale, long-fingered, clawed. He dove through the exit and slammed the curtain shut behind him, heart hammering like a drum. But even as he ran, he could hear them behind him. "Tab, tab, tab. We want your smile." Chapter 9, The Ringmaster. Eli stumbled into another tent, this one smaller, filled with concentric circles of soft red drapery. A spotlight flickered on above a raised platform, and a figure stepped into it. Not Grinzo. A man in a torn ringmaster coat. Top hat dented. Skin pale as death. His eyes were hollow sockets. He spoke in a low, rattling voice. "You shouldn't be here." Eli backed away. "I'm trying to get out. I just want to leave." The ringmaster shook his head slowly. "Leave?" He gave a dry, wheezing laugh. "No one leaves, not once Grinzo marks them." Eli's stomach twisted. "What does he want with me?" The ringmaster stepped down, dragging his cane behind him. The dirt floor hissed where the cane scraped, burning slightly. He leaned in close. "He wants your face." Eli's blood ran cold. When he puts on a new face, the ringmaster whispered, he stops cracking, stops rotting for a little while. A shudder crawled up Eli's spine. Why me? The ringmaster smiled faintly. You saw him. The tent lights flickered red. And now he sees you. Suddenly, the ringmaster's body jerked violently, yanked upward into the shadows by something unseen. He didn't scream. He just whispered, "Run!" Then he disappeared. The tent collapsed behind Eli as he sprinted out. Chapter 10: The Door That Shouldn't Exist. Eli tore through curtain after curtain until he burst into open air, or what he thought was open air. But the sky above wasn't a sky. It was pitch black canvas. He was still inside the carnival, still trapped in its stomach. He staggered backward, chest heaving. His lantern flickered low, then went out. But ahead in the darkness, something glowed faintly. A door. A wooden door standing in the middle of nothing. No walls attached, just floating upright. Golden light pulsed from the cracks around it. Eli approached slowly, every instinct screaming that it was a trap. Voices whispered behind him, dozens of them. Mannequin voices, mirror voices, Grinzo's voices. Open it. Open. Smile. Eli grabbed the handle, turned it. The light burst outward, but the door did not lead outside. It led down. A spiraling staircase vanished below into absolute darkness. The air drifting from it was freezing. From somewhere far beneath, echoing up the hollow stairwell, came a laugh. Not distant, not muffled, close, as if Grinzo were waiting just a few steps below. Eli swallowed hard. Then, lantern shaking in his hand, he stepped down into the dark. Chapter 11: Descent. The staircase wound downward like a corkscrew drilled into the earth. Each step creaked under Eli's weight, old wood bending as if resisting his presence. His lantern barely pierced the darkness. The light felt swallowed, consumed by something unseen. A sour, moldy smell seeped up from below, like old blood and wet fabric left to rot. The deeper he descended, the colder the air became. His breath formed clouds. Then the laughing began again. Not one voice, many. High-pitched giggles, deep guttural chuckles, breathless snickers, all tangled into one echoing nightmare. He's commuting. His face is crackulating. He needs yours. Eli gripped the banister. His fingers touched something wet. He jerked back. His hand was smeared with red. Blood. Fresh. He wiped it on his shirt, shaking, and kept walking because there was nothing else to do. No turning back, no other path. Just down, and deeper, until he reached the final step. It led into a long hallway made of warped funhouse mirrors, but these didn't distort his shape. These didn't reflect him at all. They reflected Grinzo. No matter where Eli moved, every mirror showed the clown standing exactly where Eli was, copying his movements with unnatural precision. But Grinzo's expression never changed. He just stared and smiled. Chapter 12: The Hall of Lost Faces. Eli forced himself down the mirror hall, keeping his eyes low. The air buzzed, thick with electricity and whispers. At the end of the hall hung hundreds of framed photographs. Old, sepia-toned, black and white, some faded so badly only shapes remained. Children, teenagers, families. Every photo had been defaced. The eyes scratched out. The mouths carved into grotesque smiles. Names were written under each picture. Emma L., age 10. Marcus W., age 15. David S., age 9. Noah F., age 17. Eli froze at Noah's name. His stomach turned, but the next frame made his heart stop altogether. Eli Pierre K.R., age 17. His own school picture stared back at him. Freshly added. Not scratched out yet. Not cut yet. The mouth was untouched, as if waiting. Below the picture, carved into the frame, were 4 words. Smile for me, Eli. A warm breath touched the back of his neck. Eli spun around. The hallway behind him was empty, but the mirrors had changed. Every reflection was Grinzo. Everyone except one, at the far end, showed Eli but with no face, just smooth skin where features should be. He didn't wait to see what that meant. He ran. Chapter 13, The Carousel of Bones. Eli burst through a curtain and stumbled into a circular chamber lit by flickering bulbs overhead. In the center stood a carousel, larger than any he'd ever seen. But the horses weren't horses. They were skeletons wrapped in circus attire, jaws open in permanent silent screams, hooves sharpened to blades. Their empty eye sockets stared directly at him as the carousel slowly rotated. Music played from somewhere. A distorted, broken carnival tune. Off-key too slow. The carousel suddenly jerked to a stop. Silence. Then, the skeleton horses turned their heads toward Eli all at once. Crack. Their hooves scraped the platform. Crack. Their jaws clacked open. Crack. One horse lunged. Eli dove aside as the creature's hooves smashed into the ground where he'd stood. The carousel spun wildly now, horses leaping from their poles, snapping and clattering as they chased him around the chamber. He sprinted toward the far exit. One skeleton grabbed his ankle, pulling him down. Its jaw opened to bite. Eli kicked it square in the skull. The bone cracked, the skeleton collapsing into a pile. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted through the exit, slamming the curtain behind him. But even through the fabric, he heard the carousel tune playing. Faster now. Excited. Hunting. Chapter 14, The Whispering Tunnels. The next area was made of narrow tunnels carved into the ground. The walls were damp and cold, dripping with condensation. The tunnel ceiling was so low Eli had to crouch. Whispers followed him. Soft hissing, urgent. He's almost here. Keep running. He wants your face. Your smile, your smile. Sometimes they sounded like the ringmaster. Sometimes like Noah. Sometimes like strangers he'd never heard. The deeper he crawled, the more the whispers overlapped, blending into a constant buzzing in his head. The tunnel split ahead, left or right. From the left came cold air. From the right came warmth. Warmth meant life. Warmth meant maybe an exit. He went right. But after a few feet, the warmth grew hot, too hot. The walls pulsed. Something dripped from the ceiling, thick, warm red. Blood. He gasped and moved faster, crawling through puddles of it, until the tunnel suddenly widened into a chamber illuminated by torches. Masks hung from the walls. Dozens of white clown masks, each with a blood-red smile. Some cracked, some smeared, some fresh. In the center of the room sat a figure hunched over, stitching something with long, slow movements. Eli stepped closer, then froze. The figure was sewing a face. No stretching skin over a mask. Human skin. Eli gagged loudly. The figure stopped, turned. It wore no face of its own, only muscle and teeth exposed beneath a torn flap of flesh. Needle-like fingers twitched. A low gurgling rasp escaped its throat. He needs your smile. Eli ran. Chapter 15, The Room of Balloons. The tunnel spat him into a large chamber filled with balloons, hundreds of them, floating shoulder high, brushing against his arms as he moved. The balloons varied in size and color, but each one had a painted smile. They bumped against him gently. Too gently. He took a step. One balloon brushed his face. Pop! A soft, wet pop. Red splattered across his cheek. Blood. He stumbled back. More balloons drifted closer, nudging him, cornering him. Pop! 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 Each burst released a spray. Blood, teeth, strands of hair, shreds of clothing. These weren't balloons. They were filled with the remains of the missing. A voice echoed from somewhere above. Every smile leaves a mark. I kept theirs. The balloons all turned toward him at once. The painted smiles widened, and the room began collapsing inward, balloons squeezing, pressing, hurting him toward the center. Eli pushed through, desperate, slipping on blood-slick floor. He dove toward a doorway, slammed through it, rolled out into another corridor. The balloon stopped at the threshold, hovering silently. He staggered to his feet, shaking uncontrollably. Ahead, the corridor led to a massive set of double doors. Carved on them, a giant painted grin. And beneath it, main performance. Tonight, Eli's final smile. Eli's breath hitched. Grinzo was waiting. And there was no turning back now. Chapter 16, The Final Doors. Eli stood before the massive double doors. Painted in black and red swirls, the doors were shaped like a grin stretching from floor to ceiling. The handle was a twisted metal claw, cold, heavy, deadly. He could hear the faintest sound beyond them, a slow, dragging shuffle followed by laughter. Low, wet, familiar. His hand shook as he grasped the claw. The moment he touched it, a cold rush ran up his arm, like electricity and poison combined. Welcome, the voice whispered through the air itself, not Grinzo's voice, but inside Eli's skull. To the final act. He yanked the door open. A stage appeared. Dim lights bathed the floor in a sickly yellow glow. The audience seats were full, dozens of mannequins, mirrors, and shadowed figures, all starring. At him, waiting. And at the far end, in the center of the stage, stood Grinzo. His smile stretched impossibly wide. His eyes glimmered with malice. Needle-like fingers twitched. Eli Parker, Grinzo hissed. I've been saving the best for last. Eli's stomach twisted. Every horror he'd seen, the carousel, the hall of mirrors, the balloons, paled compared to this. This was alive, watching, waiting. He backed up, eyes darting for an escape, but the walls were gone. The stage stretched endlessly in every direction. There was no exit. Only Grinzo. Chapter 17, The Trap Tightens. Eli ran, but the floor seemed to shift beneath him. Shadows twisted into fingers, grabbing at his ankles. He stumbled, falling to the ground. Grinzo advanced, laughing, every step synchronized with a drumbeat he couldn't hear. The laughter echoed through the endless chamber, bouncing off invisible walls. The mannequins stirred in the audience, some moving slightly, leaning forward, heads snapping in unison. Eli scrambled to his feet and grabbed a chair from the stage. He swung it at Grinzo, but it passed through him as if he were nothing more than a shadow. No weapons, Eli, the clown whispered, his voice like nails on wood. Only smiles. The stage floor shifted violently. Holes opened, swallowing chairs, debris, and dust. Eli barely leaped back in time, rolling to the side. He realized then the carnival was alive. It wasn't a place. It was a predator. And he was prey. Chapter 18, Faces in the Dark. In the dim corners of the stage, Eli began to notice them. Faces pressed against the shadows. Noah, Emma, Marcus, all the missing children. Some were alive, twisted, eyes hollow. Some were gone, just empty skin stretched over bones. The whispers intensified. Smile, give us a smile, your turn. Eli felt bile rising. He couldn't breathe. Panic clawed at him. He realized that every scream, every cry, every laugh he'd heard was stored here, in the shadows, in the walls, in the stage. Grinzo stepped closer, long fingers extending like spears. He leaned down, placing a clawed hand on Eli's shoulder, cold, hard, immovable. You can fight or you can smile. Either way, you belong here. Eli twisted, screamed, punched, kicked, but Grinzo didn't budge. It was as if the clown weighed 1,000 tons. Then the shadows reached out, crawling along the stage like rivers of black oil. The faces in the dark grinned wider, mouths stretching unnaturally. Eli's knees buckled. Chapter 19, The Smile. Grinzo's face moved inches from Eli's. The painted grin stretched impossibly. "Give me your smile," he whispered, voiced now dozens of voices at once. "Let me wear it, let me stop cracking." Eli's head spun, everything was spinning. The stage, the shadows, the mannequins, the faces, they all converged. He felt a pull, something inside him, his fear, his very soul being yanked toward the clown. He tried to scream, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. Grinzo's needle-like fingers brushed his cheeks, cold, sharp, piercing. Eli's own reflection appeared in the shadows, his mouth stretched, his jaw cracked, his eyes burned. The clown laughed and everything around him fractured. Mirrors shattered, skeleton horses collapsed, balloons burst, faces screamed silently. Eli realized then the carnival didn't want to kill him. It wanted to take him, to remake him, to wear him like a mask. And the final mask was his. Chapter 20, Into the Flesh. The needle-like fingers pierced his skin, not to stab but to peel. The laughter around him grew deafening. Eli felt his features loosen, his mouth, his eyes, his cheeks. It was all being lifted, stretched, shaped. Grinzo's hands moved like a sculptor. His grin widened even more, impossibly. Eli's vision blurred, colors bleeding into black, faces melting, screams dissolving into one eternal echo. And then he understood. The carnival was alive. It lived on fear, on screams, on stolen faces. Every mask, every mannequin, every shadow was a body it had consumed. And now Eli's turn had come. He screamed, but Grinzo's face pressed closer. Smile, pain, heat, darkness. The final thing Eli saw before losing consciousness was his own face, stretched across the clown's grin, alive and grinning. The lights went out. The carnival exhaled. It was satisfied. Chapter 21, Awakening in the Carnival. Eli woke to silence. For a moment he thought he had died, but his eyes opened. He was lying on the cold dirt floor of the main tent. The double doors were gone. The Ferris wheel, the carousel, the hall of mirrors, all vanished. He was alone, or almost alone. In the distance, a soft whistle carried across the empty lot. One note, then another. Calliope music, wrong, crooked, twisted. Eli sat up, wincing. His reflection in a puddle showed a pale, twisted face. Not quite his own, not quite Grinzo's. The clown was gone, but something had changed inside him. A subtle pull in his mind, a smile creeping across his lips against his will. He stumbled forward. The carnival wasn't over. It never would be. Chapter 22, The Children's Laughter. As Eli walked, he saw shadows moving in the corners of the lot. The missing children, their eyes hollow, their mouths wide in frozen laughter. They followed him, drifting along like smoke. Noah, Emma, Marcus, others he couldn't recognize, all of them trapped in limbo, pawns of the carnival. A small voice whispered, "Join us, he's waiting your turn." Eli shook his head violently, trying to fight it, but the smile spread farther. The laughter in his skull merged with theirs. The lot was no longer real. The asphalt stretched, the tents twisted, the rides warped. The carnival was alive and it had claimed him. He ran, but every direction led back to the center tent. The painted grin loomed. Chapter 23, The Mirror Trap. Inside the center tent, mirrors lined the walls again, hundreds of them. Eli tried to flee, but each reflection was now a version of himself with a clown's grin. Each reflection stepped closer when he moved. They weren't glass anymore. They were portals, windows into other horrors. One mirror flickered. Inside, he saw Grinzo stitched with his face, a mockery of life, a warning. The reflections whispered, "Join him, wear your smile forever." Panic erupted. Eli smashed one mirror with a chair. The glass didn't break, it bent like metal. Another mirror rippled, swallowing him, pulling him inside. He tumbled into darkness again. Shadows whispered, hands grabbed. The carnival consumed him. Chapter 24, The Ferris Wheel of Souls. When Eli finally landed, he was on the Ferris wheel. Not outside, but inside. An enormous Ferris wheel spun silently, cages dangling from each spoke. Inside each cage were faces, some screaming silently, others staring blankly, all trapped forever. A cage swung toward him. Inside was Noah, his friend, his eyes wide, mouth frozen in terror. The wheel began turning on its own, slow at first, then faster. The air grew cold. The laughter of hundreds of trapped children echoed around him, mixing with Grinzo's whispers. Eli realized the wheel was alive, feeding, expanding, every rotation collecting more souls. He could feel himself pulled toward a cage, one labeled. Eli Parker, Final Performance. Chapter 25, The Needle Fingers. The cage door swung open. Eli screamed. From the shadows, Grinzo emerged, taller, wider, impossibly fast. His needle-like fingers glinted under the pale light. "It's time," Grinzo hissed. "Your face, your smile." Eli fought, but the carnival fought with him. Shadows wrapped around his legs. The laughter grew into a hurricane. His own reflection in the cage bars grinned back at him, twisted and mocking. Grinzo's fingers pierced the bars, moving toward him, cold, sharp, unyielding. Eli screamed. The carnival exhaled. The wheel spun faster, and above the Ferris wheel's lights blinked red like eyes watching him struggle. He realized there was no escape, not here, not ever. Only the smile. Chapter 26, Into the Cave. Eli's legs buckled as the cage door slammed shut behind him. The bars rattled with every movement. He tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by a chorus of whispers. Hundreds of voices chanting in unison. "Smile, join us forever." The Ferris wheel spun faster, rattling the chains, carrying him higher. The other cages swayed. Faces of the lost stared blankly at him, some mouths twitching as if trying to speak but unable. Grinzo stepped into the cage with him, or appeared to. His hands, impossibly long, wrapped around Eli's shoulders. The clown's grin stretched wider, sharp as a blade. "It's easier if you let go," Grinzo whispered. Eli struggled, but every movement only seemed to please the carnival. The shadows pressed closer, the laughter twisting inside his skull, filling every corner of his mind. The cage lifted to the top of the Ferris wheel. Above him, the painted grin of the carnival loomed like a sun of madness. Eli's heart pounded, his chest aching. The shadows whispered again. "Smile." Chapter 27, The First Peel. Grinzo's needle fingers pressed against Eli's face. Cold, sharp, unyielding. Pain flared white-hot as his skin began to tear, not to kill but to transform. Every nerve screamed. Every heartbeat thundered in his ears. Eli tried to resist. He clawed at Grinzo, but his own hands felt weak, distant, as if not entirely his own. The laughter intensified, filling the wheel, the cages, the night air. It became impossible to separate his own voice from the chorus of the trapped. Grinzo's whisper echoed. "A perfect smile for the stage, your turn." Skin peeled, reshaped, stretched. The terror didn't stop. It became part of him. The last thing Eli saw before darkness took him completely was Grinzo's eyes, black pinholes burning into his soul. Chapter 28, The Transformation. When Eli awoke, he was no longer himself. His skin was pale, stretched unnaturally. His lips curled into a permanent grin. Eyes wide, black pupils glinting with madness. He reached up to touch his face. The needle-like fingers were gone, but he felt them in every movement, in every twitch, in every breath. He was no longer Eli Parker. He was part of the carnival. The Ferris wheel stopped, and the cages swayed, empty except for the new faces staring from inside. Eli looked down at his hands. Needle fingers formed slowly, a cruel inheritance of the clown. He tried to scream. No sound, only laughter. Chapter 29. The carnival moves on. The carnival faded from the empty lot, leaving nothing behind. No tents, no rides, no painted archway, just the asphalt and the whispers of a town wondering why children had gone missing. Some nights when the wind blows through the streets, parents swear they hear calliope music, a crooked underwater lullaby, too sweet and wrong. A shadow moves in the corner of your eye, a figure with a pale, cracked face, red hair, and a grin that stretches past all reason. Eli, or what he had become, was smiling, watching, waiting. For the next visitor, for the next victim, for the next turn of the Ferris wheel. Chapter 30, The Painted Grin. It is said that once the carnival claims you, you never leave. You may think you've escaped. You may wake up back in your bed, your life seemingly untouched. But the smile remains. The laughter echoes. The needle fingers itch. The face in the mirror moves slightly before you do. And sometimes, late at night, when no one else is watching, you hear it. Smile, it's your turn. Eli Parker is gone. Grinzo wears his face now. And the painted grin lives. Forever. Shattered RELMS. Chapter 1, The Sky Cracked. It started with the sky. One morning, the horizon split. A jagged tier of shimmering light appeared above the city, stretching across the clouds. Birds fell from the air in spirals, colliding with the ground. The sun dimmed as ripples of iridescent color leaked through the tier. People screamed, cars skidded, airplanes veered off course and vanished from radar. Nathan Hale, a young physicist, stared at the anomaly from his apartment. His fingers shook over his coffee mug. "This can't be real," he muttered. But reality disagreed. By midday, the sky had split in half. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. Shadows danced across buildings in impossible patterns. The world beyond the tier seemed wrong. Mountains twisted, seas boiled, and alien towers clawed at a purple sky. And something stirred within the crack. A low growl echoed, carried by the wind. Not from Earth, Nathan realized. From somewhere else entirely. Chapter 2, First Contact. By nightfall, chaos erupted. Creatures emerged. Shapes impossible to describe. Quadrupeds with skin like molten rock. Winged horrors with eyes that glimmered in impossible angles, and insectal giants whose chittering shattered eardrums. The military tried to intervene. Jets fell like stones. Tanks were flattened. Missiles struck the monsters, but the explosions only seemed to empower them. Nathan watched from the rooftop as one beast roared, a sound that vibrated the bones. Then it turned its gaze toward the city. Every streetlight flickered as if bowing to the creature. He knew instinctively that humanity had no chance. The world had collided with something else, something beyond comprehension, and now it was eating its way into reality. Chapter 3, The Shattered Streets. By morning, the city was gone. Skyscrapers collapsed like dominoes. Roads buckled. Fires swallowed neighborhoods. People who survived were few. Nathan moved through ash-filled streets, helping where he could, though the air itself seemed hostile. Smoke carried whispers. Shadows slithered at the corners of his vision, and every reflective surface sometimes showed things that weren't there. Other versions of the city, other people, all screaming silently. A group of survivors huddled in a half-collapsed subway station. They spoke of monsters, sure, but also of the mirrors. Walls had started to ripple. Floors became liquid glass, reflecting the dimensional tier above. Touching them sometimes meant vanishing, or worse. Nathan's mind spun. He knew they were in a different reality now. And it was hunting them. Chapter 4, The Rift Expands. Each day the tier grew. What was once a ribbon in the sky now stretched across continents. Oceans boiled. Mountains folded into themselves. Cities fell without anyone noticing. They were being erased, rewritten in the shape of alien geographies. Night brought horrors, strange storms of blood-red rain. Lightning struck in geometrical patterns, opening temporary portals through which monstrous creatures poured. Time itself warped. People aged or reversed within seconds. Nathan observed the rift with a mix of horror and fascination. He sketched patterns, trying to understand the physics, or the anti-physics, behind it. Each scribble seemed to pulse with a resonance that matched the rift. He realized something terrifying. This wasn't random. The dimensional collision was deliberate. And someone or something was orchestrating it. Chapter 5, The First Breach. In the subway shelter, a shriek echoed through the tunnels. Something large hit the ground above, shaking concrete and steel. Shadows raced along the walls, faster than human eyes could follow. One survivor screamed and ran, then another. A creature fell through a newly formed portal, a mass of writhing tentacles, eyes that spun like tiny galaxies, teeth like serrated moons. Its growl resonated in Nathan's chest, like the city itself was mourning. The survivors tried to barricade the tunnel, but the monster was relentless. Nathan grabbed a fire extinguisher. His hands shook. He had no plan. The beast lunged, and the world shook with the sound of breaking reality. Chapter 6, Into the Dimensional Storm. Nathan barely survived the subway encounter. The tentacled monster tore through the barricade, but when it lunged at him, the floor beneath it collapsed into another dimension, a swirling void, and the creature vanished, screaming in alien tones. Above ground, the rift pulsed violently. Buildings twisted and tore like paper, revealing glimpses of impossible cities, jagged mountains and skis colored in black, purple, and green. He and the survivors climbed through debris, seeking shelter, but the air crackled with energy. Every gust of wind carried whispers in languages no human tongue could form. Nathan realized the city itself was alive in some way, feeding off the tears in reality. Each movement, each collapse, each scream seemed to widen the rift. Chapter 7, The Mirror People. They stumbled into a department store. Broken glass covered the floors. Shadows moved in strange sync with their steps. Then Nathan saw them, figures pressed against mirrored walls. At first he thought they were reflections, but the figures moved independently. They didn't mimic him, they stared, waited. Suddenly the mirrors warped. The figures stepped out, walking in a jerky, unnatural rhythm. They were human-shaped, but their skin was pale and smooth, their eyes black voids. No mouths, yet they whispered in unison. "You do not belong here." The survivors panicked. One tried to run but vanished into a warped mirror, screaming. Others froze, unable to speak. Nathan realized the mirrors were another type of portal, another dimension bleeding into theirs. Chapter 8, The First Portal City. The survivors stumbled into a street that no longer existed in maps. Buildings loomed impossibly tall, leaning at impossible angles. Streets twisted into themselves, forming loops that led nowhere. Above, multiple rifts shimmered in the sky. Beasts moved through them, dropping into this broken city. Quadrupeds with jaws like gaping maws, winged horrors and creatures that seemed made of smoke and teeth. The survivors were trapped. Every street they tried to take curved back to the same square. Nathan realized the city itself was a trap, a crossroads between dimensions. And something in the distance watched, an enormous black entity towering above the city, pulsing with each rift's heartbeat. Chapter 9: Shadows of the Lost. At night, the shadows came alive. The survivors huddled in an abandoned office tower. The darkness outside twisted into figures, the lost people from earlier cities, their faces distorted, their eyes glowing white. They whispered, sometimes in familiar voices, "Come join us." One survivor reached toward the window to see what was happening and vanished. His screams echoed, but no one could tell where they came from. Nathan realized the rift wasn't just tearing space, it was devouring humanity, rewriting it into shadows, monsters, or mirror beings. He sketched frantic diagrams. Patterns emerged. The rifts pulsed like a signal, almost alive, directing everything, orchestrating a slaughter across dimensions. Chapter 10: The Rift Hunter. The black entity moved. Nathan named it the Rift Hunter. It was massive, taller than any building, shape ever shifting, a skeletal silhouette composed of smoke, metal, and eyes. It prowled the streets, absorbing creatures and humans alike, feeding on chaos. Every portal it touched widened, releasing smaller monsters. It was the apex predator of this collision, hunting not for food but for order, for dominance over this new, blended world. Nathan and the survivors barely escaped into the subway tunnels. One by one, the monsters followed, slipping through cracks, shadows, and temporary rifts. Nathan realized with horror, the world wasn't collapsing by accident. This was the beginning of a full-scale invasion. Dimensions weren't just colliding, they were conquering. And the Rift Hunter had already chosen them as prey. Chapter 11: The Subway Labyrinth. The survivors ran through the subway tunnels, but the tunnels had changed. Stairs led nowhere. Platforms twisted into loops. Every wall was now cracked with shimmering portals showing alien landscapes. Nathan tried to map the paths, but every turn he took led him back to the same place, a central hub where the echoes of the city above haunted him. From the darkness, whispers rose, warnings, threats, pleas. Shapes emerged from the shadows, humanoid, yet wrong, like their skeletons were mirrored or rotated. One shadow lunged, passing through a wall as though the subway itself was alive, closing in to consume him. Nathan grabbed a steel pipe, swinging at nothing. The shadow hissed and vanished, but left a residue in the air, a chilling residue that whispered, "Next time." Chapter 12: The Dimension Spikes. When Nathan and the survivors emerged from the tunnels, the city had transformed again. Towers stretched impossibly high, streets spiraled into themselves. From the rifts, massive crystalline spires shot down like nails through reality. Where they struck, monsters spilled out. Some were insectoid, some serpentine, others defied biology entirely. Entire buildings became breeding grounds for creatures with eyes on their tentacles, teeth along their limbs. Nathan realized the spikes weren't random. They were anchors, points holding this blended reality together. And with each strike, the world became more hostile, more alien, more impossible. The survivors fought desperately, but each monster defeated seemed to spawn two more. The city was a predator, and they were trapped inside its stomach. Chapter 13: The Shifting Ground. The ground itself betrayed them. Streets folded and unfolded under their feet. Sidewalks became walls, walls became ceilings. Vehicles morphed into monstrous forms, engines grinding teeth. One survivor stumbled onto a sidewalk that suddenly opened into a chasm, leading into a swirling portal. He screamed as shadowy tendrils dragged him into the void. Nathan realized that the city wasn't just merging dimensions, it was testing them. The walls, the floors, the air itself had become sentient. Every step carried the risk of vanishing into some other horrific reality. Above, the sky pulsed with multicolored energy. From it, screaming monsters fell, tearing through buildings and people. Time was fractured. The city existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And the Rift Hunter waited at the center, absorbing everything, commanding the chaos. Chapter 14. The Rift Hunter Strikes. The black, towering Rift Hunter descended from one of the larger rifts. It moved like a shadow in reverse. Its presence twisted reality around it. Streets bent, skyscrapers crumbled, and monsters froze mid-motion, awaiting its command. Nathan tried to flee with the survivors, but the hunter's aura crushed the air, slowed their movements, and whispered madness into their minds. One survivor turned to Nathan, eyes rolling back. It sees, it knows. The hunter extended a claw-like limb, scraping across a building. Reality tore open. Buildings collapsed into nothing. People dissolved. Even Nathan felt his own body flicker, momentarily erased from existence. It was not hunting for food. It was hunting for dominance. And all of humanity was just another layer of chaos to control. Chapter 15. Into the Alien City. Nathan led the survivors through a collapsing tunnel, emerging into what appeared to be a new city. But this was alien. Buildings were angular and translucent. Streets reflected impossible geometries, and the sky had a strange, iridescent haze filled with floating spires. Monsters roamed freely, hunting in packs. Gravity was inconsistent. Some areas pulled downward, others upward. Nathan understood. The rift had rewritten reality entirely. Their world was gone. What remained was a battlefield for dimensions, a testing ground where monsters and humans clashed for survival. The survivors pressed on, knowing the Rift Hunter was hunting them, knowing escape might be impossible. Nathan clenched his fists. They had to fight or be consumed. Chapter 16. Gravity's Curse. The alien city warped further. Gravity fluctuated, tossing survivors into walls and ceilings at random. Concrete and glass flowed like water. Buildings elongated, then collapsed, reforming in impossible shapes. Monsters adapted instantly. Some crawled along air itself, others teleported through portals. Nathan watched in horror as a creature with dozens of eyes tore through a street, swallowing people mid-step. Even the survivors' weapons became unreliable. Bullets slowed, twisted, or vanished entirely. Fire from guns ignited nothing. Nathan realized that the rifts themselves were alive, manipulating physics, reshaping matter. Fighting the monsters directly was pointless. They had to manipulate the dimensions themselves to survive. Chapter 17. The Hunter's Shadow. The Rift Hunter reappeared, descending from a massive vertical rift. It stretched impossibly, towering over the alien city. Each step cracked reality. The ground beneath him disappeared, revealing a void filled with screaming faces from other dimensions. The hunter's eyes, or whatever counted as eyes, focused on Nathan. A telepathic scream tore through his mind. "You are mine." Monsters around it froze, awaiting command. The air itself warped into claws, trying to tear Nathan apart. He grabbed a survivor, pulling her through a portal just before the floor dissolved. The Rift Hunter's voice echoed everywhere, everywhere at once. "You cannot hide. You cannot fight." Chapter 18. Collapsing Timelines. Time fractured. Seconds repeated or skipped. One moment Nathan was running, the next a week had passed or hadn't. Survivors aged, regressed, or vanished entirely. Portals became unstable. One led to a world of fire, another to endless water with impossible floating cities, another to complete darkness filled with whispers and crawling shadows. Every step became a gamble. A wrong choice meant eternal entrapment in a hostile dimension. Nathan realized they were being corralled. The Rift Hunter wasn't just hunting. They were driving them toward a trap at the heart of the alien city, where reality itself could be rewritten to suit the hunter's will. Chapter 19. The Heart of the Rift. The survivors reached a central plaza, surrounded by twisted towers that seemed alive. At the center floated a massive, glowing orb, the core of the dimensional collision. Nathan felt it pull at his mind, visions of countless worlds flashing before him, all collapsing. The monsters, the mirror people, even the shadows were drawn toward it. The Rift Hunter appeared atop the orb, its form stretching into multiple realities at once. Its gaze locked on Nathan. It whispered, "Merge, become one with the collapse, or be erased." Nathan understood the truth. The orb fed the Rift Hunter. Destroying it meant survival, but reaching it meant crossing through the worst horrors of every dimension simultaneously. Chapter 20, Into the Breach. Nathan volunteered to lead the way. Survivors followed, trembling, battered, and barely human anymore. They ran across a street that became a wall, leapt over buildings that folded like paper, dodged monsters that spawned midair. Every rift opened new terrors. The closer they reached the orb, the heavier the air became, thick with screams. Shadows stretched and twisted around them, trying to swallow their minds. Nathan reached the orb. Its surface rippled like liquid glass, reflecting not him, but the worst versions of every survivor. He hesitated. One wrong step, one glance, and he would vanish. And from behind, the Rift Hunter loomed, whispering, "Your world ends, your body ends, your soul belongs to me." Chapter 21, Fractured Minds. The orb pulsed, and Nathan felt his mind fracture. Memories of Earth, of his friends, of his apartment, all twisted together with alien visions. The mirror people appeared in the air around him, their faces merging with his own. One survivor screamed and vanished as the rift pulled at her body, tearing her between dimensions. Nathan clutched his head, trying to anchor himself to reality. He realized the Rift Hunter didn't just destroy bodies, it shattered minds, turning consciousness into fuel for the dimensional chaos. Every step closer to the orb was a step toward losing himself entirely. Chapter 22, Monsters of Impossible Geometry. The plaza shifted violently. Streets folded into impossible loops. Buildings rotated in multiple directions at once. Monsters poured from rifts in staggering numbers. Serpentine horrors with faces on every segment, quadrupeds with limbs bending in impossible ways, and smoke-like entities that moved through walls. Bullets vanished midair. Fire ignited and instantly extinguished. Even the survivors' senses betrayed them. Up became down, left became right, and distance was meaningless. Nathan realized the battle wasn't with the monsters. It was with the physics of reality itself. Every monster was merely a tool of the dimensions, hunting them with perfect coordination. Chapter 23, The Rift Hunter Descends. The Rift Hunter moved to the center of the orb. Its massive, skeletal form seemed to flicker between dimensions. Tentacles of shadow extended outward, pulling monsters and matter toward it. Nathan and the survivors were surrounded. Every portal they tried to flee through led back to the orb. Gravity twisted. Air thickened, time fractured further. The hunter's voice filled Nathan's skull. "You cannot fight what creates reality." One survivor lunged at the hunter and vanished instantly, leaving only a scream that echoed in every timeline simultaneously. Nathan realized that this was no ordinary enemy. This was the heart of the dimensional collapse, and it was omnipresent. Chapter 24, Breaking Point. Nathan stepped closer to the orb. Every movement tore at his mind. Faces of lost survivors, alien landscapes, monstrous screams, all pressed into him like a storm of chaos. He tried to focus, to find a pattern. The orb pulsed in rhythm with the Rift Hunter as if they shared a single consciousness. A sudden surge of energy shot through the plaza. Monsters were obliterated, buildings vaporized, shadows evaporated, but Nathan could feel the force pulling him apart as well. He realized the only way to survive was to interfere directly with the orb, to destabilize the collision. But doing so meant risking total annihilation. Chapter 25, The Leap. Nathan grabbed the hand of one remaining survivor and jumped into a portal leading directly to the orb. The moment he touched its surface, the world shattered into fragments. Cities, mountains, oceans, and skis from infinite dimensions merged into chaos. He saw glimpses of universes where monsters were rulers, where humanity never existed, where reality was fluid and merciless. The Rift Hunter lashed out, trying to absorb him. Nathan felt its consciousness brush against his own alien, cold, omnipotent. Then he acted. He reached into the orb, plunging his mind into the dimensional energy. Time, space, matter, they responded. The orb trembled. The hunter roared. The battle wasn't physical. It was mental, psychic, existential. Nathan was now fighting not just for survival, but for reality itself. Chapter 26, The Heart of Chaos. Nathan's mind surged through the orb. Infinite dimensions unfolded before him, some bright and familiar, others dark and grotesque. The Rift Hunter loomed everywhere at once, a presence that defied logic. He felt his body dissolve, then reform in impossible geometries. Every thought became a battleground. The energy of collapsing universes burned his consciousness, whispering promises of power and death. Yet amidst the chaos, Nathan discovered a pattern. The Rift Hunter's consciousness, though omnipresent, had a flaw, a rhythm, a pulse, a pattern he could disrupt. He focused, ignoring the screaming faces and screaming skis. The survival of every dimension now depended on his will alone. Chapter 27, The Mental Seed. Nathan attacked the orb mentally, pulling at the threads that bound dimensions together. The Rift Hunter screamed, a sound that vibrated through every reality simultaneously. Monsters dissolved mid-step, shadows evaporated, entire streets folded into nothingness. But the attack came at a cost. His memories flickered. The faces of friends and family merged with alien horrors. Pain and terror became indistinguishable. The survivors outside the orb felt the tremors. Buildings shook, rifts destabilized, and monsters panicked as the collapse began to reverse. Nathan realized the Rift Hunter wasn't just a predator. It was a parasite feeding on fear, chaos, and life. To destroy it, he had to sacrifice his own connection to Earth. Chapter 28, The Collapse. The orb shuddered violently. Dimensions tore and reknit themselves around Nathan's mind. The Rift Hunter writhed, screaming in 1,000 alien voices. The portals to other worlds began to close. Streets returned to normal, monsters vanished, and the alien skis began to fade. But Nathan's body, if it still existed, was unrecognizable. He was now a being of pure energy, intertwined with the rift. The survivors watched in awe as the city reformed around them, scarred but recognizable. The Rift Hunter had been defeated, or at least imprisoned, but Nathan's physical form was gone, lost to the dimensional storm he had tamed. Chapter 29, A World Rebuilt. Months later, the city tried to recover. People rebuilt their lives. Scientists studied the rift remnants, careful not to repeat the catastrophe. Nathan was gone. His sacrifice had saved the multiverse, but the memory of him lingered in whispers, in reflections, in dreams. Some said they felt him watching, guiding them, a faint pulse in reality itself. The survivors carried scars, physical, mental, and emotional, but they had hope. The rift was closed, the monsters gone, and the Rift Hunter no longer prowled. Yet in the corners of the sky, faint shimmerings remained. Dimensional echoes, remnants of a war that had reshaped reality forever. Chapter 30, Echoes of Infinity. Sometimes late at night, survivors swore they saw it. A flicker in the corner of their eyes, a shadow in a mirror, a whisper in a storm. The Rift Hunter had been defeated, yes, but its influence lingered. Dimensions were fragile, time was flexible. Reality could never be trusted completely again. Nathan's essence had merged with the multiverse. He was no longer human, yet he existed, watching, waiting. And sometimes, when the sky shimmered, the survivors remembered his final words, etched into their minds through the echoes of infinite worlds. Be ready, the collision is never truly over. The world was saved, but the war between dimensions had only just begun.